Back to your bride ship series, I just started the first one in that series, and it's been so enjoyable so far. And, I think of the conditions on the ship on the way over. I mean, stinky and, I can't imagine.
Yeah. The ships at that time were sort of in transition. We had the old sailing ships, that they would whip up the sails and that's how they were primarily driven across the ocean, was by the sails. Well, they took these sailing ships and they added steam power. So these ships were not necessarily the most sturdy, they were built mainly for the sailing and you have the shape of them, everything. Yeah, it was not an easy voyage still for these people. I mean, later on when the ships were built differently and they were more comfortable and bigger and more solid, these early ships that were still sailing with these sails at times and at times steam powered, they used the sails when they had wind to conserve on energy, and then they would get the steam powered ovens going when they needed the steam power to move the ships. And so it was a very difficult journey and a long journey. The women in the first bride ship book, they were basically on the ship for 90 days, and they sailed across the Atlantic and had to sail around South America and up the coast of South America and up to San Francisco and then on to British Columbia. So it was quite a long journey. And the supervisors of this particular group of women in the first book, they were poor. Most of them were poor women from the slums and orphanages and in London who had no hope. I mean, it was a real economic hardship at that point in England, and the lack of marriageable men was a huge problem. So many men had immigrated to get work because there was it was a hardship to find work. And so without without marriageable men, even the middle class women who were very wealthy, this new middle class whose fathers had built businesses and become successful, they were struggling. And that's where we get that word spinster from, because that was what was happening. So many of these women couldn't find husbands and ended up being spinsters. And so we have two of these groups joining the bride ship endeavors. There were organizations who were supporting this and sending these women out. And so they had these chaperones who were accompanying them on the ship. And in this first book, the chaperones decided that they weren't going to let the women off the ship at all the entire time, because there had been another bride ship that had gone earlier from Australia to British Columbia. And the women, when they were allowed to get off, all left in, I think, San Francisco or someplace. So these particular women, they were trying to guard. They wanted to get them all to British Columbia so that they didn't lose any of them. And so they were very strict about it. These women were not allowed to get off the ship until they got to British Columbia. And so so the ship did dock a couple of times to refuel and get more supplies. And at those points, the other passengers who were on the ship were allowed to get off. But the women had to stay on. And so then when they finally arrived in British Columbia in the colony, they were super excited to get off the boat, but they were dirty. At that point in time, there was no way to really take baths or to wash your clothes on board very well. You only had salt water. And so they were dirty and grimy and, it was a long voyage for them. But exciting, because here are all these men greeting them along the shore. Literally hundreds of men line up to greet them, and they want to pick a bride, but there's a limited number of women and there's all these men. So it just makes for a very fun story. So yeah, I again chose, like in this first book, to base this particular couple off of a real couple that I read and inspired this particular story, and have done the same thing with the other stories, try to pick some of the real women and not using their names, or but just kind of using some of what really happened as a basis for the books. So yeah, the third book in that series releases in a couple of weeks, and then there's a fourth book that releases at the end of August. So it'll be fun. Hopefully readers will just be able to go from 1 to 4 and enjoy them all.
Yes, I like that I don't have to wait a whole year. That's nice.
Yeah.
And then what I also like is on your website, you have like a gallery. And then now, is that kind of pictures that you have kind of based some of your research off? Like what is that?
I have a gallery from readers, and some of my readers, especially those who are on like one of my release crews. I have release crews with people who sign up to help read the book early, and then they agree to help spread the word about the book. So some of those readers, and then just readers in general, will take quotes from books and make pictures, or they'll post pictures of themselves with the book, that kind of thing. So I have a gallery like that. I also have a gallery that comes from Pinterest, where I put together various pictures that represent what's going on in the book. And so I might have like actual historical pictures of the ships, or of various other historical elements that are woven into the book. I usually will pick a character that I find, whether it's an actor or a model of some kind, that I use as a basis for the hero and the heroine. I usually pick those before I start writing, just so I have a mental picture of who my characters are. And so they get added to that particular gallery as well. So there's a lot of different stuff that goes into that, into those galleries on my website. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, you did. No, I was looking at one and I saw Henry Cavill,
Oh yeah,
Superman. I'm like, oh, so you can't see it, but I have 4 posters on my wall. So
okay.
yes. So no, that's great, because
Mhm.
sometimes I have a hard time picturing what the ship looks like, or what the lighthouse looks like. And so I
Mhm.
like that you have that on your website. So
Yeah, well, good. Yeah, that's a wonderful place to turn for all kinds of resources too. So yeah, the pictures are a good thing. There's also links to buy the books if you want an easy way, to know where to turn. There's reviews. There's some of the books have some good book group discussion questions. There's just all kinds of stuff on there for readers. So I would encourage readers just to check it out. And there's also a contact box on one of the tabs where readers can get in touch with me. And I always respond to emails. It might take me a little while, but I do get back to people. And then, like I said, I also have a launch crew. And if readers are interested in that, they can head over to Facebook, and my Facebook page has a link that takes you to that particular group, and you just request to join the group, and then I admit people into the group as they request it. And that's a wonderful place to keep up with everything going on with my books. I offer early reading opportunities and giveaways, and we have polls, and we post pictures and share things there that is more intimate than just my regular Facebook page. So yeah, it's called The Reader Room, and it's available for any reader who's interested in my books.
oh, very cool.
Mhm.
I like that.
Yeah.
And so you've got your 2 additional Bride series books coming out here. Anything else in the works after that?
Well, this is a very busy year. I have a YA series releasing in the fall as well. So I have these last couple brideship books, and then starting in September, and then in October and November, I have a brand new YA series called The Lost Maidens. Or no, The Fairest Maidens. Sorry. My last series was The Lost Princesses, and this is The Fairest Maidens. And it is a prequel to the Lost Princesses series. And so The Fairest Maidens releases, the first one releases in September, and I do a rapid release for my YA because those are, like I mentioned, a little bit shorter, and I have them available for those who are voracious readers and who enjoy just whipping through a series. And so that particular series, I'm really excited about. It was a lot of fun to write, and it's the medieval times, little bit on the fairy tale element. These 3 novels actually are inspired by a few of those big fairy tales. I won't say which ones, but it's the first time I've done that, and I had a lot of fun kind of adding my own twist and different elements to it. So I hope readers will enjoy those too.
Very cool. And how much research is available for medieval times?
Well, actually, there's quite a bit, actually. I have a pretty big library. I mean, a substantial amount of books that I've collected over the years on medieval times, and my own binder that's, pretty big now. The fun part about it is collecting words that were spoken to give a flavor. Obviously, readers don't want to wade through Old English.
No.
That would be very difficult. So to give a flavor of the medieval times without it being too difficult to read. So that's been fun to collect those words that add that flavor of medievalishness to the book. So yeah. But really, I find with my YA, I have a little bit more liberty to create things and not have to stay as true to a historical era, because these are more of a fairy tale retelling than actual historical accounts. But I do have a novel releasing next summer that is a time slip that is medieval times, and that is a very historically grounded, involving events in the 1300s, and so that I did have to stay very true to the time. So
that all sounds extremely hard to do. I'm very impressed with having to research all of that and then make it work in a story. So
yeah, yep. It does get. You have to learn to compartmentalize so that you don't forget details as you're working in one era and then you jump back to another era. You have to remember what goes with what. So it does, if I'm writing a medieval story and then I'm also working on, the 1800s stories, I have a brand new series releasing with Bethany House, who does my adult historical romances. So starting next January, I'll be moving out to Colorado, not me personally, but my stories. And they will be set in the Rocky Mountains on a ranch there. And I'm doing a family saga, and they're fun rancher stories with a lot of family drama and the early Colorado days. And so that's one I've been working on writing, and that's been fun too. So yeah, there's a lot coming down the pipeline. So a lot of variety, for, like you said, of different places and stories for readers to jump in and enjoy what they like the most.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your gifts with all of us readers. I mean, it's It's so nice to read and to kind of escape a little bit, but at the same time learn a little bit, a little history. And so thank you for, and inspiring as well. So thank you for doing this interview with me. And I'm just very thankful.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. I always enjoy talking about books. So there's always a joy in discussing all these stories and sharing with readers. So thank you.